Alright, Stormcasters, it's time.
It's time!
To have one last big beefy talk about Storm, Earth's Mightiest Mutant. Now, I've already dragged Marvel across the coals for how bad they treated Storm and Morewa and the whole creative team. But this time I'm focusing on the creative side of things because while Morewa definitely deserves grace and understanding for what he had to do, he is still the writer. And when years pass by and people look up this series, most of them will just read this at face value. We'll be talking about the good and the bad, and some points will be discussed in both sections, so consider them double-edged swords. And with that being said,
Beautiful.
Who? Me?
it was good to see Storm palling around with Sugar. She's making more god friends along with god enemies, making the grand scale of this story feel more natural for her. Morewa said a long time ago that his main mission was to elevate Storm to the status of solo hero, as well as establishing her as a cosmic and divine level character. And I think we can all agree he accomplished that goal. The red herring setup with Akujin was also really well done. The way she and her sisters kept saying they're here to free her master while not naming him was a brilliant choice. This Japanese-themed character shows up, so it's easy to assume she was talking about Susanoo when she said she's here to free her master. But once you start paying more attention, you start poking holes in that assumption. She's surrounded by Oni guards. Oni are a type of Japanese demon. Then there's her name, which literally translates as evil person. And I pointed this out in my EMM issue 1 review, but it really wouldn't make sense for an evil person with demon guards to be serving a god. And if you read Rogue Storm, you'd know that she was an underling of Egoun, who himself is a very powerful demon. But that fact wasn't so crucial to the plot that you had to read Rogue Storm, making it more like extra credit instead of required reading. I definitely would have preferred a better reveal or payoff, but the setup itself was great. All throughout Morewa's run, Storm uses magic by speaking words or terms in Swahili. This goes all the way back to issue 4 of Storm 2024 with the Ile spell, continued in Rogue Storm where she invokes the powers of different Yoruba gods, including Shango. And of course this finished in EMM when she used the ruby to go home. It's a unique take on the magic word or magic phrase trope that ties Storm to the language of her maternal family line. So Morewa actually killed 2 birds with 1 stone by developing her ability to spellcast and deepening her ties to her mother's family. Morewa also casually introduced impossibly powerful beings like the raptor from DC, and even that fish creature that Storm ate, which not only added to the story's cosmic scale, but showed how other beings acknowledge Storm as an equally powerful character. But this point could be equally positive and negative because the story glosses over so many of these things, including Storm's own power ascension. And to round out the good section, I'll focus on issue 5. Storm resurrecting Maggot with a dark magic spell has been a very contentious part of issue 5. Very divisive, but personally, I like it, at least on paper. She's so tired of losing people that she resorts to using a form of magic that she has little if any experience with. And like Wanda laid out clearly in issue 2, Storm's natural talent or affinity for magic does not mean she's ready to dive into the deep waters of the mystical world. I've seen some people bring up Resurrection of Magneto to argue that this shouldn't have even been a problem for Storm, but I disagree, because those were totally different circumstances. In Resurrection of Magneto, Magneto's own soul reached out to Aurora through dreams, prompting her to go into the White Hot Room to start looking for him with the help of technology wielded by Blue Marvel. And along the entire way, she was guided by different spiritual forces, including her ancestral grandmother Ashake. So it's like comparing an invitation to a party to a home invasion. I also think this is a great consequence for Storm to face, since she deeply values all life, and she would obviously hate being responsible for the loss of random life. And this of course was divulged during her final confrontation with Eternity, which Storm desperately needed. It was only a matter of time before our favorite cosmic bald-headed bastard showed back up. Their conversation could have easily spanned across multiple issues, but it was still good to see him come back in true form to try and rope Storm's powers into himself one last time. I also like how it's another universe's Eternity, showing how he's a multiversal being whose variants are all connected. I've also seen people complain that this didn't end in some big fight, but I prefer the way it ended here, even if I wish it had more room to breathe. The way she rejected him here was fundamentally different from what we got at the end of Storm 2024. That was more reaction or instinct. This was a conscious and calculated decision, where Storm literally sat down and heard Eternity out, which was way more than he deserved. And then after hearing his side of things, she used her will, her experiences, and her knowledge to make an informed decision. Storm's family time in the past with her mother and in the present with her daughter were also very enjoyable. Even though I feel like the flashback was a little long running for what it ultimately set up, I always enjoy taking a peek into the past to see little Aurora. And seeing her start to bond with Furaha was enough to make me somewhat invested in the future of this mother-daughter duo. Hopefully it's not the last time we see Furaha, but given the track record of Storm's future children, don't be surprised if it is. And last but not least, I must shout out Storm's goddess forms. Issue 5 introduces us to the true full goddess form for Storm, which I and a few other fans on Twitter affectionately call Elder Goddess Storm. The other two forms are partial and unstable transformations based on Storm's emotional and mental state. Morewa confirmed to me on Twitter that it's basically Storm's version of bipolar disorder, where one represents an emotional high or manic state and the other represents an emotional low or depressive state. Specifically, the red-skinned and pink-hair version represents rage, aggression, and pride, while the black form is pure despair. He also confirmed on Twitter that this is wholly due to her divine lineage from Ashtar and not part of her mutation. But alas, all good things must come to an end, and that includes this section. Now it's time for the bad.
Demerits, my boy.
Right off the bat, we gotta start with the Demon Sisters plot, which ate up way too much time and went nowhere. The biggest offender in the overstuffed plot case. All their talk of afterlives and demon world politics, from the death of Kronos to Persephone and Hades' daughter ruling in their place, all of it felt like world building for a different story that wanted to intersect with Storm's, but never got the chance to. Right behind them is the FBI plot. They're not immune from criticism either, but at least they only took up 1 to 2 additional pages or panels, which is a slight against both plots. And Galacta's the giant neon sign above it all. Teasing on covers, teasing in solicits, all the panels of her floating in vats. For what? A couple panels of her walking. You know what else didn't get any payoff? Storm's apparent beef with her mother, her actual mother, not alternate Earth Nadari. She made such a big deal about her mom not coming to see her in the afterlife. I would have rather them left some other things on the editing room floor to give space for this, because we already care about Storm and Nadari. We also cared about the Thunder Gods being held in Storm's pocket dimension, but that's just left dangling, so now they're in there indefinitely. And this is part of why I said I'm still going to take Morewa to task on this, because yeah, he got screwed by Marvel. But did Marvel go to him and say, you have to dedicate 3 pages per issue to these Demon Sisters, while not mentioning the gods held in the pocket dimension? Speaking of people we never see, let's talk about Death, your girl Mistress Death, the one who launched the war above all. Yeah, she doesn't pop up in this series once. Oh, we see her forces alright, but no Death. But to be real, that doesn't bother me all that much because Storm is so separated from the main conflict, even if Death were appearing, she wouldn't be interacting with Storm. But that kind of leads to my point. For this entire series, Storm felt like a reactionary character, being yanked around from place to place. And maybe that's part of the theme that Morewa wanted to tell with this story. How in the grand scheme of things, Storm has lost her autonomy in these events. If that was his intention, bravo, he succeeded. And I love the fact that Storm has some official goddess modes, but they don't have nearly enough focus, setup, or payoff. The reason why they even exist isn't even laid out in the text. It's another thing that you wouldn't know unless you follow Morewa on social media or watch his interviews. Morewa has said that there are different ways that her powers work in these forms, but again, we don't really get to see that. The most we get are stepping stones for another writer to use when they decide they want to level Storm up some more. And sure, you could guess a few things, like in her Rage Goddess form, she uses much larger attacks, like a more grandiose version of Eternal Storm. The type of stuff some fans wish Storm would always do just cuz. This form definitely reminds me of classic Rogue Storm, back from Uncanny X-Men 148. Because in that form, she was telling everybody off. She said, I don't need nobody, I don't need no friends, I don't need none of y'all. I am the greatest that ever was, I'm a goddess, bow down to me bitches. I guess now that form is like a proto-goddess form, and that one's triggered more by pure instinct. I feel like a form as big as this should have some actual explanation. Same thing for her Despair form. We never get a true reason for why she gets the Black Lightning. Something else you would only know if you follow Morewa on Twitter. And the worst offender of all this is her Elder Goddess form. What do those hands mean? What function do they serve? What else about Storm is different in this form? Questions that another writer will have to answer, if they ever choose to do so. Because this could easily be another Godhead. How many times has that power been used since its debut? Once? Maybe twice? Please, next Storm writer, prove me wrong. And I hate sounding like a broken record, but there are just so many things that we never got that we should have gotten instead of things that took up so much time. Haddad came back. Storm never had another meeting with him. Not a fight, not a heart-to-heart, not a meeting of the minds or spirits, nothing. How would she feel seeing him resurrected as part of Death's conquest? Would she feel guilty, remorseful, or just duty-bound to stop him? And we're gonna round things out just like the last section with some issue 5 specific critiques, which I already started with the Elder Goddess Storm talk. I love when this series gets trippy, but I hate when it gets so trippy we have no idea where we are or what's happening. The way issue 5 started was so jarring. There was no setting box, no narration to tell us where we are, how we got here. Storm's just watching this Igun-gun or masquerade dance about, and then a giant tiger salamander crawls out. Now Storm's in the sunken place, getting lectured by eternity. The opening pages of this issue are the definition of, okay, I guess we're doing this now. As I said in the previous section, I do like how Storm resurrected Maggot, but it is executed horrendously. It's laid out in pure exposition, but we're given zero time to actually deal with the ramifications of this act. Same thing for Scarlet Witch's investigation of the dead people, which went in a direction I didn't predict. The way the first guy's head blew up, it almost sounded like his soul got sucked into the phone after his head exploded. I heard someone say on Twitter that that was supposed to be Egoun shouting to be released. Again, nothing in the text says that. This is why I can't let Morewa off the hook 100%, because even if Marvel came to him and said, hey, this thing that we said you had 10 issues to do it in 5. He still got to choose what went in. So why give this thing with characters we have no connection with and really don't care about yet, why give them 3-4 pages per issue, and then stuff we're already interested in, give it little panels, little blurbs here and there? Why introduce someone like Scarlet Witch to the series and say that she's gonna investigate when her investigation's results are just told to us by eternity? We don't get to experience her putting the pieces together. You know what else we really don't get an answer for? Faraha. I'm already disappointed that we only get aged up Faraha. I want a little girl Faraha. She was adorable. Or both. Or even old woman Faraha. Throw them all in there. But we just get her grown up version, and we have no idea who the father is. Again, Morewa has allegedly said on social media she does have a father, but he hasn't named him because he would need permission from Marvel or the character's creator to use him. Again, this one's alleged. I haven't seen him said that himself, but according to the streets, that's what's going on there. Also, how the hell did Storm and all the other Omega level mutants die in Faraha's timeline? Show me that. I don't care if it's just 2 panels. And I know I haven't talked much about the art, but I have to mention this part here because it's driving me up a wall. And I will say this in the most respectful way that I can because I don't want to feel like I'm crapping on the artist Frederica Manson. But during the flashback where 6-year-old Aurora is getting her hair braided by her mother, I need to know what was Frederica thinking when she drew Storm like this, because that is neither the body nor the face of a 6-year-old. For comparison, here's young Aurora around age 5 or 6 with her father by Lucas Wernick. This is from Storm issue number 4. Here she is again at age 5 and 6 from Hellfire Vigil, drawn by Luciano Vecchio. And here she is again at age 12 from Storm issue 9, again by Lucas Wernick. All these ones look the way they're supposed to look for whatever age Storm is. So why did Frederica draw her looking like this? It's not because she can't draw kids, because she's drawn kids in this book before and they look like kids. So why does Storm look like this? I'd sooner believe this was 16-year-old Storm than 6-year-old Storm. And then there's the ending. Storm wins. I was harsh in my last video, said that it was terrible. One of the worst endings I've ever read to a comic book arc, run, or series. And some people said that I was too harsh, but I stand by it, if for no other reason than the fact that Murewa himself is standing by it. Here's a quote from a recent AIPT Comics article where he reflects on his time writing Storm.
Some of the endings that have stayed with me the longest and had the most impact on me are open-ended conclusions. Ones where the audience's imagination is activated to wrap the story up neatly. But I am also aware they're not for everybody. The ending of Storm Earth's Mightiest Mutant issue 5 is partly born from keeping things open-ended because when writing it, I wasn't sure if there was going to be an issue 6 or not. But it was mostly structured this way because this is the type of ending I like the most.
So no, this is not just Marvel forcing him to truncate all of his ideas and chop them up and put them on the page. That is part of the reason why that is, but according to the man's own words, he likes open-ended endings like this. And if we only had 1 or 2 plot lines that we're following, I could see that. Wrapping up the A and B plot while leaving the C and D plot open? Sure. And then remember, we already got another open-ended ending for Rogue Storm. However you think it ended, that's how it ended. Oh, Anime, you're being too hard on him. You know, Marvel, I don't want to hear it. I respect Murewa as a fellow writer and a fellow Storm fan too much to just dance around this issue. Plus, he's a big boy. If he couldn't handle criticism, he wouldn't be on social media. And at the end of the day, that really is why I'm doing this. Even when it was rough, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed this entire run. And the pain points I'm speaking here are not coming from a place of hatred or vitriol or thinking Murewa was a hack or wishing Storm would just go back to being something that she's not here. I've always said, make Storm as big as possible. She was intended to be a top-tier powerful character by her own creators. Not complaining about the cosmic stuff, not complaining about the divine stuff. I think the way it was executed was very hit or miss, but my complaint is not Storm needs to go back to just being a mutant. I know I got some viewers, even some longtime viewers and fans of the channel that feel like that. I respect y'all's opinion, but I just disagree. But I think Murewa did more than what most other writers would have done, even if they had 50 issues. From here, I only have 2 hopes. A, that Murewa goes back to writing for himself. I think he's proven that he needs his own playground to play in because he plays best when he has his own toys and is in his own playground. And whatever he releases next, I most definitely will be picking up. Hats off to you, good sir. Keep doing the damn thing. And B, whoever writes Storm next, because Storm will probably be fated to having 1 or 2 volumes of a solo series per decade, just like things have been for the past 50 years. And whoever picks up the baton next, do not roll things back. Build them up. Take the seeds, the baby plants, and the big trees out in the open that Murewa planted, water them, tend to them. Do like Magi said in Fern Gully, and help it grow. Because when you take something that has this fertile of ground that Storm has, and you give it time and care, you can only get greatness. Look at what Murewa did in 20 issues and just under 2 years. Somebody else could do more. Was I too harsh? Did I take it too easy on Murewa? And are there any praises or criticisms that you have that I didn't mention? Comment below and let me know. And then you better click on this video right here to get more Weather Witch goddessness in your life. And until next time, keep right on simping.